The Wolves provide an early Christmas gift as Rudy Gobert and company roll to a 110-98 win in Sacramento. Jack Borman and I talking about it on the Locked On Wolves postcast.
This is Locked On Sports Minnesota podcast. It's endless Minnesota Timberwolves talk with the diverse voices of your local experts. It's time for the Minnesota Basketball Party on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What is up, everybody? It's another Wolves After Dark, Locked On Wolves postcast. Jack Borman, I'm Sam Ekstrom, filling in for the postcaster general, Luke Inman, who's off here for the holiday. It's great to be with you again tonight after another great Wolves win, 110-98, the final score in Sacramento. The Wolves threatened briefly at the end, mostly a cruise control victory for Minnesota with some terrific individual performances. Anthony Edwards, Rudy Gobert, Jaden McDaniels, Mike Conley. Same story, it feels like, as 2 nights ago, honestly, as the Wolves come up with a big road win. Talking about all of that on tonight's show, which is brought to you by PrizePicks. The easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNBA and use code all lowercase LockedOnNBA for a first deposit match up to $100. Jack Borman, give me the first word, man. What'd you think of tonight?
Yeah, I mean, you just have to like the resiliency that you saw at the end. But for me, I think this game really started in the first quarter with the way the Timberwolves were able to set the tone, getting into the paint. So that was something that really was a theme throughout tonight. In the first quarter, the Timberwolves had 24 points in the paint. That was their season high for a first quarter, and tied for their best quarter overall this season in the paint. The Kings did. You know what they did the last time, where they kind of showed 2 on the ball on Anthony Edwards, playing in that kind of high wall, hedging, hard hedging concept in the pick and roll with Ant to force it out of his hands. And he did a great job of getting off of it early. And we saw the Wolves really pivot to more of that Mike Conley, Rudy Gobert pick and roll, Kyle Anderson, who was filling in for Carl, Slow-mo and Rudy pick and roll. And they did a great job. Rudy had 3 lob dunks in the first quarter. And Ant did a great job of getting downhill as well. And so that really just snowballed. I mean, they ended up having 44 points in the paint at halftime, which was their most in a half so far this season. Then they ended up finishing, with 66 points in the paint, which was a season high for the Timberwolves, while also playing some great defense. The Kings got off to a really slow start from 3. They were 0 of 8 from 3 in the first quarter. And this was the first game of the season for Sacramento that they did not hit 10 threes in a game. They only finished with 8 threes tonight. So I think those 2 big things, obviously being able to come back and hold Sacramento to 8 threes after, allowing them to shoot 17 of 35 in that in-season tournament game at Target Center, which was, supposed to be a huge game, was a packed house, and the Kings really sucked all the energy out of the building. So it was nice to see the Wolves return the favor for at least the first three quarters and change before the Kings really started to get back into it.
Yeah, you build a 20-plus point lead, and then you brace for the Kings to finally turn it on, and the dam broke, and they threw it all at the Wolves late, and even faced with a 17-2 run against them late, the Wolves still hit some huge shots. McDaniels, Edwards, Conley in the closing minutes to ice this thing. Again, you can find Jack's work at Canis Hoopus. Don't want to forget about that. Find his post-game work there, and find me here at Locked On Sports Minnesota as people continue trickling in here on the Locked On Wolves postcast. Rudy Gobert, probably the biggest story tonight for the Wolves, I would say, a plus 27, which was 1 off the team lead. Mike Conley, a plus 28. But Rudy, 21 and 17 offensive boards, half a dozen of them. So impactful. And I know a lot of people, and I think, Jack, you might have been in this mix on the Minnesota Basketball Party, saying that the Sacramento Kings were a tough matchup for the Timberwolves because they're kind of their antithesis. And they beat them earlier in the year. But I was always quick to remind people, too, that the Wolves went 3-1 against this team last year, and they are the Kings' antithesis. They're big. They've got size the Kings just can't compete with. And tonight, I think we saw that size won out.
Yeah, no question about it. I mean, Jim P talked about it all night long on the broadcast, how much success Rudy Gobert has had playing against Domantas Sabonis and this Kings team in general over the last handful of seasons, dating back to when he was in Utah. And that certainly continued tonight. I think that this was one of the most active games we've seen from Rudy Gobert on both sides. I mean, you saw in the first quarter, he had probably, 3 or 4 really hotly contested rebounds. I mean, and I know, you've probably played some pickup basketball in your day. I know I have, playing intramurals. It was like playing Domantas Sabonis is like playing a guy who played, guard or tackle in football in high school. And, is just throwing his elbows and his shoulders and his whole body into your back and making every, defensive rebound really tough. And he did a great job coming away with rebounds. And then, the Timberwolves did a great job of running off of those. And when Rudy Gobert is able to contest and get rebounds and quickly outlet the ball, I mean, you see the Timberwolves be able to get out and run, right? They've got great athletes to be able to run in transition. They've got, 2 really good transition handlers and Mike Conley and Kyle Anderson. And when you can kind of get them in the same, in the same lineup, especially with someone like Gobert that can just close out possessions. You see the Timberwolves do a great job of running in transition, and they obviously tried to do that more so tonight with the Kings being on the second night of a back-to-back, and paid off with 28 points on the fast break to just 5 for Sacramento. And so a lot of that has to do with, what Gobert was able to do, really, just making shots tough. Especially contesting on guys like Harrison Barnes and Sabonis, especially inside when they were trying to finish. So a great night from Rudy, and obviously that helps when pick and roll is a more steady part of the diet for the Timberwolves on the offensive end, especially with Ant getting doubled and no Cat.
Yeah, Wolves now 22-6 with the win, 2 in a row after that setback a couple games ago. Wolves win by 12 tonight. Anthony Edwards, 27 points again. I believe he had 27 against the Lakers too. And I told Tyler Metcalf, I said, if Anthony Edwards could have just finished some left-handed layups tonight, he would have had 35. Well, tonight he did the left-handed layup thing beautifully. He was finishing so strongly. It was the outside shots that prevented him from having 35-40. I think he was 0 for on his heat check threes. Few too many times down, no passes. The heat check threes, a lot of times they go in for him. That's the only nitpick tonight for Ant, who again was marvelous.
Yeah, 10 of 15 from 2-point range, 3 of 12 from 3-point range for Ant. He had 34 and 10. So you're right. He would have gone over 35 had he could have just made one more three or took one more shot at the rim instead of settling for a three. I think what Ant's done so well this year compared to even last year, 2 seasons ago, when they played the Memphis series, is that opposing defenses would really pressure Ant, and he would just kind of shut down. He would really become pretty passive, would struggle to get off the ball early, so that the Timberwolves could kind of make one more pass and play on the second side of the floor. But he's been so good at that this season, and tonight was another example of it, in where he got off of it early and he trusted that the game script would kind of come back to him. And that's exactly what happened. And that Sacramento kind of had to move away from being quite as aggressive above the break to try to, protect against some of that backside empty pick and roll for, Slow-Mo and Gobert, or Conley and Gobert. And that allowed Ant to see more, standard pick and roll coverage, drop coverage that he was able to get downhill and score against. And the thing is the Kings have 0 rim protectors on this roster. And so the more that, Ant's able to get past that first line of defense and just stay in attack mode downhill, the better it got for him. And so that was obviously great. And then he did a great job running in transition, right? You saw those 5 quick points that he had right at the end of the game. Mm-hmm. Obviously one had that pick 6 and then the, obviously the and one right at the end to put the cherry on top. And so the more that, Ant's able to get out and run, I think, and kind of create some of those big highlight plays, I think that just gets him going and gets him in a rhythm, and just feels like no one can stop him when he gets in that mode and wants to get downhill and attack. And so I think the more the Timberwolves can get out and run, I think the better we're going to see Anthony Edwards here, down the stretch. And I think the faster the Timberwolves will play too, if Carl's going to miss another game or two here potentially.
I thought the slow Euro step that Ant had on his final and one would have made Kyle Anderson blush. It was the slowest step I've ever seen. It was like 8 seconds after the whistle, he was putting up the shot for the and one. That was great though. Cherry on top as they stemmed the tide. They didn't let and this is just where my mind goes. I'm thinking like this is like game 3 of the 2004 Western semifinals where Peja got really hot late. That's where my mind went in this game, because it was the Kings. I gotta stop doing that to myself. But we got plenty more to talk about. Karl Anthony Towns does not play. Kyle Anderson fills in. How did that go for the Wolves tonight? We'll discuss that next after a word. This episode of the Locked On Wolves postcast is brought to you by BetterHelp. BetterHelp, excuse me. Now, right now, to my left over here, there's a pile of presents, a pile of gifts, and I've been wrapping during the Timberwolves game. Excited to exchange those with my family tomorrow. But whether or not your family gives gifts during the holidays, you get to define how you give to yourself. And the holidays are a great time to do that. So maybe you have considered therapy, you've thought about going at some point, maybe New Year's resolution, you want to start doing that. You can begin that with BetterHelp. And there's a lot of positivity associated with it. I've been to it, and it's a really positive experience as well. You can work through a lot of stuff just talking to people. If you're thinking of starting, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapists anytime for no additional charge. And in this season of giving, give yourself what you need with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/LockedOnNBA today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOnNBA. Back on the Locked On Wolves postcast. Wolves win 110-98. He's Jack Borman. I'm Sam Ekstrom. No Karl Anthony Towns tonight, and we were worried about Cat because there wasn't much of an update after the Lakers game. Ruled out tonight with left knee soreness. So of all the diagnoses, that seems fairly mild, and we probably don't have to hit the panic button too hard. I guess we'll wait and see on that. But no Cat tonight. Kyle Anderson fills in. Kyle Anderson has been struggling, and I think you cautioned this going into the season, Jack, that when you're coming off a career year shooting, you might be due for some regression. Well, he's really regressed shooting the basketball. Still does a lot of other stuff well, but I thought that he actually settled in a little bit in a starting role tonight, got some more minutes, some more opportunities. What'd you think?
Yeah, I mean, just before we get into slow-mo, I mean, I was in the locker room after the game, after the Lakers game, and Karl was not walking with any type of limp. He was in really good spirits. He was getting treatment on that left thigh, lower left thigh, kind of where the thigh meets the knee, in the treatment room after the game, and was in good spirits. And I think a lot of people were kind of panicking, but there was no panic in that locker room. Saw several different, Timberwolves executives were in great moods after that game. I can't imagine they would have been in good moods after the game if Karl was hurt, in any serious way. But yeah, I mean, with slow-mo, the great thing about slow-mo is he really tries to get to his spots on the floor, and he knows he's not shooting the ball very well. So he's just not, he's not wasting possessions by trying to shoot himself out of it, right? He's not it's very different if Troy Brown Jr. was shooting, 27% from three or something like that. And he's a shooter and you want to try to see him shoot his way out of it. But, for Kyle, I thought one of the better possessions for him was he passed up an open corner three early in the fourth quarter and just walked, I think it was Kevin Huerter, down to the block and scored. Right kind of as the shot clock was expiring. And that's something that he's totally going to be able to do, right? Like no one's going to try to double Kyle Anderson in the corner. And if teams try to hide a weaker defender on him, trying to sag off of him, that's something that he's going to be able to do. Had another really important little right-hand hook floater right at the end of the shot clock, right after Mike Conley came in when the Kings were really at the peak of their run. I think it was 17-2 at that point. And again, he's just a guy where, I think he just knows how to make smart plays when the game demands it. And I'm personally not really worried about the shooting because, we saw what he did in Memphis and in San Antonio. He's just not really his game. And I think he totally understands that. He's not trying to, play outside of himself. And that's the great thing about it. And, I think it was really, fun to see Slow-Mo kind of be back to his, last year self in terms of how impactful he was now that he kind of had a longer leash and was playing with the starters. I think he plays really well with that starting group, and they obviously have some leftover chemistry, at least the Edwards, McDaniels, Anderson, Gobert, group of four there. So fun to see him play well. And the hope is that, if Karl does miss another game or two, you feel pretty good about Slow-Mo back in there, given the upcoming opponents they have and how much familiarity he has with all these guys.
Yeah, I think it made sense to hold Cat out with 2 days off after this. So you hold him out one game, you basically get 5 days for him to nurse whatever it is that's ailing him. Might have thought it was going to be a big Nas game in Cat's stead, and Nas was pretty quiet. Just 6 points for him. It really was all about the starting five tonight. Bench was average for the Wolves, only 13 points, I think, combined. Also, occasionally I lose my mind on this show. Thank you to Tony in the comments. Ant had 34. I think I might have said he had 27. That's my mistake. I'm not above admitting when I make just a boneheaded error. But Karl Anthony Towns out tonight. Doesn't matter. Wolves still win by 12. Rudy huge, Ant huge. Mike Conley, though. I mean, can we have the obligatory Mike Conley appreciation question to you, Jack Borman? Because it's every game, like Jim Pete talking about, timely shots, little spurts when they need it, a transition run out when they need it. And he flirts with a triple-double tonight, 12, 9, and 7. The guy is unbelievable. He doesn't take time off. What an asset to this team.
I don't think there's any Timberwolves player that I can think of that I can remember in my conscious fandom that makes me feel safer than Mike Conley does. When he's on the floor, it just feels like the Timberwolves aren't going to lose because he just, outside of two, pretty weak turnovers he'd be the first to tell you that in the first quarter. He was lights out the whole night. And he just has such a good sense for when to get up those threes in key moments like you're talking about. A lot of times it's in the slot in transition. He likes that kind of hop step after he catches it into a slot three, and he's shooting over 55% from the corners, which has been great from 3-point land this season, or right around 55%. And I think the more threes that he takes, like the better off the Timberwolves are. And I think it goes so much deeper than the pick and roll playmaking that he has. I think the more, just the more aggressive he is in general, I think the Timberwolves welcome that, especially on a night where you don't have Karl Anthony Towns. And I just think that the Timberwolves becoming, not just a better than average offensive team, but a top 10, really, really solid offensive team is, getting nights like you did for Mike Conley tonight and Jaden McDaniels with the two of them combined for, 32 points on, 6 of 16 from deep. I mean, you'll take that every single night, when you can get it. And I just think that an aggressive Mike Conley is the best Mike Conley. And there were quite a few possessions too, where he really did a good job moving his feet and, and cutting off the first drives that some of the Sacramento guards wanted to take. So just another great game from him, and a great example of, how much of a slam dunk that trade was when you consider, how Nikhil played defense on De'Aaron Fox, how Mike Conley was awesome tonight, and D'Angelo Russell was benched and came off the bench for the Lakers tonight. So just another night where you're very grateful that the Timberwolves somehow swung that trade.
There has been some concern I've seen, and it's in the comments tonight a little bit too, about overworking Mike Conley. Do you see that as a problem?
I don't, frankly. Chris Finch has talked a lot this season about how he's, been pretty blunt and honest with Mike Conley, and has had really direct, open conversations about, the workload that he's had this season, and the fact that, he said the other night after the Lakers game, because I think that was the second night of a back-to-back, where, Mike has told him that he wants to play the second nights of back-to-backs because he feels like he plays better. He was awesome in that game down in Phoenix, even though it was a scheduled loss, and he played really well against the Lakers the other night. I think the biggest thing for Mike that, I've spoken with him in the past, he talking about the wear and tear comes just how much, like with going over screens, right, and getting screened. That's really the only type of contact that he's taking, because he's not, driving in, drawing fouls at the rim, all that type of stuff. He does a great job of reducing the wear and tear, where hopefully it's mostly just kind of cardio for him in terms of, how his body's holding up, and whether it's just, progressive fatigue and things of that nature. But, I'm not concerned about it, because he knows his body, as well as, anyone would, being in the league, 16, 17 years now. So I think if he needs a blow, he needs a night off, he's totally gonna come forward and be like, hey man, I feel like I just need one. And he obviously knows. I mean, he's, in the twilight of his career and wants to be able to win a championship. And I don't think that he's going to do anything, physically that's going to jeopardize that. I don't think he's going to, waste all of his energy, in December and January and February, when he's got, May and June on his mind. So I think we'll see him rest a little bit more the second half of the season just to ensure that he's fresh. But I also think that, he's really enjoying playing basketball right now and wants to kind of help keep this thing rolling as best he can.
Thunder, Mavs, and Lakers next on the slate after Christmas. We'll talk about what's ahead as we roll on the Locked On Wolves postcast. Daily fantasy sports is fun when you do it the right way. You want to do it with PrizePicks. That's the largest daily fantasy platform in North America. You're not competing with like 1,000 sharks in a gigantic pool where you're not going to survive. You're just competing against the numbers, more than or less than, anywhere from 2 to 6 stat projections, and you watch the winnings roll in. So tonight, maybe you had under Josh Allen passing yards and over Rudy Gobert points. Yeah, you can do cross sport when you play with PrizePicks. You can also have a reboot policy. So if there's an injury in the first half of the game, PrizePicks will reboot the player that exited. It is the only injury insurance policy on any daily fantasy sports platform. Quick withdrawals, easy gameplay, enormous selection of players and stat types are what make PrizePicks the #1 daily fantasy sports app. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNBA. Use code LockedOnNBA for a first deposit match up to $100. I'm telling you, it is easy. It is fun. Go to prizepicks.com right now /LockedOnNBA and use code LockedOnNBA for a first deposit match up to $100. It's PrizePicks. All right, rolling on with the Locked On Wolves postcast. He's Jack Borman, Canis Hoopus. I'm Sam Ekstrom, part of the crew here at Locked On Sports Minnesota. Luke Inman should be back for that game on Tuesday as the Wolves take on the Thunder. Once again, that is back at home. Or no, I'm sorry, that's on the road. And the Wolves, for all that's been made about their home record, Jack, the road record's 10-5. I mean, they've got wins at Miami, at Dallas, a couple times against Golden State, in New Orleans. They've got some great road wins on their resume, and if they go to New Orleans and win after 2 days rest, that would be another one right there.
Yeah, playing in Oklahoma City would be a great win.
Oklahoma City, thank you.
Would be a great win considering where they're at in the standings, and and that place is certainly shown its ability to be a great home arena. When we saw the early OKC days when they were a perennial deep playoff team, and it's important to note too, like Josh Giddey hurt his leg a couple nights ago and did not play in their loss to the Lakers tonight. So they may be without him. Jalen Williams, the guard Jalen Williams, also tweaked an ankle in that game, but he did play tonight in that game. So again, it'll just be another great opportunity for Nickeil Alexander-Walker and Jaden McDaniels to continue the momentum that they built in the fourth quarter tonight. The two of them combined to hold De'Aaron Fox scoreless on 0 of 6 shooting on the fourth quarter tonight, which was obviously huge. And Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, another superstar point guard that can totally get it done, and just another good opportunity for those guys to continue to build. And then again, Thursday when we're back home at Target Center playing against the Mavericks with Luka coming into town. So I'm just really excited to see the Timberwolves continue to kind of get some national respect here right around the holidays with with kind of the point of the season, I guess, where people kind of start to take these teams for real. After we have a 25-30-ish game sample now of all these teams, it's almost half the season where I think everyone starts to follow the NBA a little bit more as the NFL season kind of starts to wind down here a little bit. So it'll be really fun to kind of see where the Timberwolves can net out. And I think I've seen that the last 2 seasons, the team at the Christmas point of the season, either Christmas or after New Year's, the team that's been first in the West has gone to the finals. So should be really fun to see where where this Timberwolves team can go. Now that they'll hopefully be the number 1 team in the West here at the turn of the new year.
Yeah, the Wolves are 22-6, 2.5 clear of Denver, who's getting hot right now. Denver's won 4 in a row. They're tied with the Celtics for the best record in the National Basketball Association. But, the Wolves started a 17-game stretch, I want to say, Jack, where every team they played was 500 or better, or in playoff position, another way to look at it. And they've got 8 left in that stretch. I want to say they're 7-2. in the first 9. I mean, the Wolves have proven time and time again that they're legit. I mean, tonight, another shining example. There's no doubt about it. There's not an ounce of fraudulence to this team. So you've got 8 games to go in this gauntlet of a stretch, which is by far your toughest part of the schedule of the year, right? Once you clear that, let's conservatively say they go 5-3 or 27-9. Then you hit the easy part of the schedule. And if you are remotely healthy, I mean, it's not unrealistic to start projecting win totals for this team. You don't want to put the cart before the horse because you don't know who's going to get hurt at any time. But then you can really get creative with where this team could go. Once you come out of this stretch, it's going to lighten up a lot.
Yeah, no question about it. I think I saw today or yesterday that Timberwolves had the 4th easiest schedule remaining in the NBA. Don't totally quote me on that, but I think that, the biggest thing, again, and we've talked about on the basketball party as well, is like the best thing about the Timberwolves starting 22-6 right now is if they went 500 for the rest of the season, they'd be roughly 48-34, which would no question have the Timberwolves hosting a first round playoff series and would probably have you in conversation for that one seed, 2 seed, considering how strong the competition has been in the Western Conference. But yeah, I think we've all been really excited to see what this Timberwolves team looks like against some of these more fully loaded playoff squads, just because there were quite a few games where the Timberwolves played opposing teams that didn't have their stars or one of the few stars not playing. And obviously the Timberwolves can't control that, but the fact that you're able to win 2 out of 3 on the road against Miami, Philadelphia, and Sacramento with those teams pretty much at full strength in terms of all the key guys playing. That's a great stretch. And if you want to also include Dallas in that, 3 of 4, that's awesome. And I have no doubt in my mind that they'll beat Oklahoma City. I think Karl-Anthony Towns should be back for that game. We'll see. But even without him, I just think that they match up really, really well for Oklahoma City. OKC's really struggled with size this year. It's another opportunity for Rudy Gobert. He really pumped Chet Holmgren in that first matchup at Target Center. And I think that he'll want to build on a great performance tonight, especially with a couple days to think about it here and want to come out with that same fire. So really excited to see what this Timberwolves team can do now. Playing a few teams for the first time in Houston and Orlando, and that game at Boston in a couple weeks should be really, really fun as well.
Well, blown away once again by the number of people in this room right now in this chat. It's almost midnight Central Time. What are you all doing? Thank you for watching live in the Locked On Wolves postcast. If you trickled in late, you can rewind us. You can go back and watch us after the fact. We're available on the YouTube channel, Locked On Sports Minnesota, and the audio goes up both in the Locked On Sports Minnesota podcast feed and the Locked On Wolves audio feed. You can hear Ben Beacon breaking it all down with that daily show. He'll have an in-depth episode, I'm sure, about this Kings game coming up. I'm going to make a call here, Jack, in closing. I don't think the Wolves are going to be idle on Christmas next year. I got a feeling that they are going to be playing on Christmas, maybe for the foreseeable future. They are not, however, this year. So enjoy your Christmas Eve and Christmas Day. Is there a holiday tradition that you are either dreading or anticipating for the next couple days?
I thankfully no, nothing that I'm dreading. I always enjoy watching the couple NBA nightcap games after dinner. Once we kind of get back from being with family, but it's pretty much all with my mom's side of the family for both nights. So a ton of people that we don't get to see all the time. So it's always fun to have a ton of family in town and have both my sisters back around, which is always fun. So I'd very much welcome though, a departure from some of the family time. If that meant hosting a Christmas Day game at Target Center next year, it'd be kind of a fun tradition to start. The 60-1 championship ticket, pretty fun. I'm holding on to a ticket myself for the Wolves to be the number 1 seed in the West, which would be a great cash as well.
Dolphins Wolves title parlay. That's what I'm banking on. That's gonna need a little help on the NFL side, but that's the Locked On Wolves postcast for tonight. Thank you all for the comments. Thank you for watching live and those that watch back on replay. He's Jack Borman, does great work at Canis Hoopus. I'm Sam Ekstrom, trying my best to fill in for Luke Inman. He does this pretty much every night. He does it for Vikings as well. So tomorrow afternoon, it's Luke, it's me, it's Ron Johnson doing Locked On Vikings postcast as well. So more than just Wolves here on Locked On Sports Minnesota. Big thanks once again, and we will talk to you next time on the Locked On Wolves postcast. See ya.